Today I'm going to be talking about tofu. And so tofu is quite nourishing, right? It's made from soy, which is nice. But I just want to sort of deconstruct the tofu. So as you can see, it's organic. So it's made from plants and organic stuff. But you'll notice it's plain tofu. And when I think of tofu, I think of how nourishing it is for my body. And you'll notice that there's like a nice little bowl here, some bits of tofu and some avocado and some cucumber and some what looks like cabbage. And I really like avocado. Find it quite nourishing. And avocado is also green, which is my favorite color. And as you can tell, organic plain tofu is in green, and it's a good source of protein. So that's good because that's in my favorite color, which is green. It's proudly plant-based as well, as you can see, which is great because for me, I'm also vegan, so I eat a lot of this stuff because that's what vegans do. So as you can see, tofu. And when I think of tofu and I read it back to front, you'll notice that tofu becomes ufot. And when I think of the word ufot, I think of the word foot. So ufot. And the word foot reminds me of my feet, and so that I've got two of them, and that when I kick a ball with my left foot because I'm left-handed. So, but back to the word ufot. My first teacher at primary school, her name was Mrs. Foot, and when I think of Mrs. Foot, I don't have very fond memories of her because she didn't like me very much because I wrote with my left hand, because I'm left-handed. But when I think of primary school, even though she wasn't very nice to me because of my left-handedness and my left-footedness, I think of the fond memories of primary school where I was a lunch order monitor. So when lunch orders came through, like we could buy pies and fish and chips and stuff like that, and I would go to the shop next door to the school and get it, the lunch orders in. And it makes me feel sad because we could do that back then, but now it's all like PC and everything, and lunch orders don't involve fish and chips or pies anymore. It's really, really healthy stuff, sort of like similar to what's on here. So with the avocado and the cucumber. And while I really like this food, I think it's important to note that not everyone does, because especially children really like sweets and lollies and fatty things and stuff that's just not good for them, or not good. And so healthy food, it's a blessing, but it's also a curse. It's a blessing because it nourishes our bodies and makes us feel good, but it can be a curse because it can be bloody expensive, like tofu. This I think cost me around about maybe $7 to $8, and it's 300 grams. So 300 grams, it's not that thick, and it I froze this to begin with, so I kept it in my freezer for a little while, so it's actually quite cold. It's been in my fridge now, thawing out for around about a week or so. I'm actually going to have it for dinner tonight. I'm going to cook it with a stir fry, so I won't be eating it with avocado, cucumber and chopped up cabbage or lettuce. I will be having it in a stir fry. And when I think of stir fries, I think of fun things like when a friend of mine went overseas, she had a group dinner at this really beautiful restaurant called Welcome Cafe, and I had deep fried mushroom and tofu, and so tofu, but it wasn't plain. It was actually quite good, and I really liked that. And it just brought back all these warm fuzzies. So when I eat tofu, I'm reminded of my friend going away and how happy she was to go on her big OE. So, and so I look at the back of this, and it says that it contains soy. So, contains soy. And so when I think of that, I have a good friend whose partner can't have soy. It would probably kill him. His skin falls off when he eats food that's not good for him. So this contains soy, so he can't eat it. And it says that it may contain traces of milk, and I find that interesting because as a vegan, I eat this stuff, and vegans don't eat milk or don't eat milk, products, so like cheese and cream and things like that. So that's interesting that as a vegan I can eat this plain tofu. It's organic too, so but it may contain traces of milk. And so as a vegan, I also don't eat eggs, which is disappointing because eggs are quite tasty, and I haven't had eggs in quite a long time now. But this also may contain traces of egg, and so as a vegan, I'm choosing not to eat these things. But my friend's partner doesn't get a chance. He doesn't get a choice in what he can and can't eat. So he can't eat soy or sesame, from what I gather, or things like chickpeas and things like that. So like sort of, I guess, plants that are of the legume family. So peas and soy and things like that, which is disappointing. I think it would really suck to be him, because I wouldn't be able to eat tofu, and I do like tofu. As a vegan, I eat a lot of it. The good thing about this tofu is that it's made in New Zealand, as you can see, made in New Zealand, and so that's good, because when I think of New Zealand, I think of all the sheep that we have. We have more sheep here in New Zealand than we do people. So if we were all to die out and there were sheep, it could be just a sheep colony of the North and South Island just being filled with sheep, just running riot and doing sheep things, eating grass, which people say that when you're a vegan, you eat lots of grass. And of course grass is green, much like the printing on this packet of the organic plain tofu, and it's a good source of protein. People say that sheep are a good source of protein because you can eat sheep. I don't, because I am vegan, but being a vegan means that you have to get protein from somewhere, which is good because you see, this tofu is proudly plant-based, and it's a good source of protein. So it's plant-based, which is great, because that's the essence of being a vegan, really, is eating plant-based products. I am dating a woman who can't eat gluten. It makes her very crook. So she wouldn't be able to eat this organic plain tofu because it contains traces of gluten. And so when I think of gluten, I think of bread and muffins, cheese scones. I can't eat cheese scones anymore because I'm vegan, and cheese scones has cheese in it. But I can eat muffins. I make muffins quite regularly, And when I think of muffins, I think of stress relief. I like to bake to sort of relieve stress and blow off a bit of steam. And so when I'm feeling sad or overwhelmed, I will bake muffins. Often they have apples in them. You know, what else? I've got some feijoas in my fruit bowl at the moment, which I'm going to turn into a cake. And then I'm going to use the feijoa skins to make a fizzy drink. And feijoas are green, which is fantastic, much like the printing on this packet of organic plain tofu, which is also a really good source of protein. And looking at the back of this package, as you can see, we've got the nutritional information, but you'll also notice this SPCA, logo, and that the organic plain tofu company, Bean Supreme, which is the company that make this organic plain tofu, that they support the SPCA, which is wonderful news, because as a vegan, I want to support the animals and look after their welfare. And so I have a friend who works for the SPCA. She does amazing work caring for animals. And so, she loves her job. She's like a bird mother. She loves birds, but I don't think she'd be able to eat this tofu either, because it may contain traces of egg. And so, I mean, some people do eat eggs because it's a byproduct of, birds. Birds lay eggs, we can eat them. But eating fertilized eggs is probably not good. I know that in some cultures that a fertilized duck egg is a delicacy. Often it's sort of like Eastern Asian cultures that find that really quite tasty, but as a vegan, I wouldn't eat that, and I don't think my friend who works for the SPCA would either, because she really cares about birds. And so, when I think of Asian dishes, a lot of Asian dishes have tofu, and so tofu is just, it's quite common in sort of like, Asian cultures to eat a lot of this stuff. But I think what people forget is that, it's often really hard to, eat real sort of genuine tofu. This is probably mass produced, as you can tell. It's sort of sealed in plastic, which makes me think of albatrosses, and how I've seen videos of albatrosses, those really big, massive birds that, are quite, I guess they're quite endangered as well. We have an albatross colony somewhere near Dunedin, actually, so they're very special birds. But I think of, the plastic from things like this, that are proudly supported by the SPCA, like an animal welfare outfit, but they pack it in plastic, and that birds like albatross, penguins, just birds in general who will eat this thinking that it's food, not the tofu, but the packet that it comes in. And I find that disappointing. I feel that's really sad. And as a vegan, I find that quite upsetting. But as a vegan, I also eat a lot of organic plain tofu, which is a good source of protein. And when I think of protein as a vegan, I think of ways to eat protein and where that comes from. And a lot of the time it comes from things like chickpeas or lentils. It's often found in curries, and so I really like making curries. I'm quite good at making dal now. I have a friend of mine who makes amazing dal. He's very talented at cooking lots of food. He actually lives in a commune with some other people, and so he has to cook a lot of food at any given time because he feeds a lot of people. And when I think of feeding a lot of people, I think of the children in Yemen, with the war happening and there's a lot of famine. And I think, they must be really hungry. I often see videos on YouTube about starving children, and my heart just breaks for them, that their children are dying because they're hungry. And when I think of them, I just want to cook food for them. And because I'm vegan and I eat a lot of organic plain tofu, I want to feed them food that's like what's printed on this packet here. Like if I sent it to them, it would just go bad by the time it got there. And so, you know, I think of, other agencies that help out people in countries like Yemen. There's Medicine Sans Frontières, which is, Doctors Without Borders. So they send doctors over to these countries to take care of them. And it's like medical doctors and surgeons and even psychiatrists as well, because often there's a lot of distress that happens in these countries, like Yemen. And and so war-torn countries, I know that the war in Ukraine, there is a vegan group that is sending pet food to displaced people with their pets, where people have had to flee the country to take care of their dogs and cats and their animals. So they're supplying food for families with animals, and so I think that's great. And they're also supplying food for families as well, vegan families too, and obviously vegans eat a lot of organic plain tofu. And so, things like this are great, but just without the packaging, it's not good for the environment. Global warming is really rife at the moment. We've got climate change. I went for a walk along the beach in South Shore, and I found that the shore is starting to erode and its sea levels are rising. So I spoke with this man. We went for a walk together, had a beautiful dog. And so we're walking his dog. I didn't know him, but we just got talking, which was really nice. And he was telling me about, how, the sea is rising and how the area of South Shore is actually going to be prone to flooding over a period of time. So much so that any new house has to be built like 1.5 meters off the ground in case it floods. And so, which really spoke to me, because I really, I see myself in the future living in a cottage by the ocean with my greyhound, and I'm really passionate about like animal welfare. So much like this tofu package that's that's proudly supported for like supporters of the SPCA. So they look after the SPCA. I'm assuming that they give a little bit of money to the SPCA, which is really kind of them. But I want to live in a house by the ocean with a greyhound, a rescue greyhound, because often they're bred for racing, and they only last in the industry for around 2-3 years, and then they're either adopted or put to sleep. And so I want to adopt a greyhound and have that greyhound as my pet. But because I'm vegan, I know that a lot of people find feeding animals like dogs and cats a challenge, because dogs and cats don't eat organic plain tofu. So you hear horror stories of vegans feeding their cats a vegan diet. Cats can't eat a vegan diet. Their bodies aren't made for it. They have to eat meat. Whereas dogs can eat vegan food, but they do need to have that balance of meat as well. So they're kind of, I guess, omnivores, really. A lot of dog foods have vegetables in them. And so I guess, it makes me think of when we used to have a dog when I was growing up. And my dad was mixing up the dog food. And in winter, we'd give her like warm, wet food. And so my dad was mixing it up. And he dipped his finger in and tasted it. And he said it tasted like human food. It tasted like, a casserole or something. because, you know, dogs are omnivores, so they can eat what we eat, but they can't eat dairy, so they wouldn't be able to eat this tofu because it may contain milk, traces of milk. So a dog wouldn't be able to eat this, and because a dog can't have dairy, it's really bad for their gut. Dogs can't eat chocolate either, because of I think it's got the theobromide in the chocolate that they can't process it in their bodies. They can eat carob though. Carob is made from something different than chocolate, and so I think carob contains soy, which is also what's found in organic plain tofu. And so, you know, carob is really good for you. I know that for me, as somebody who suffers from migraines, if I eat lots of chocolate, then I get a headache. Whereas if I eat carob, I don't get a headache, which is really good because it means I can treat myself and eat a lot of it without making myself too sick. And so, yeah. Vets often give dog treats, carob dog treats to their animals, which is really nice actually. And I've seen things on the internet of vets having a jar of Hershey's Kisses for dogs who are about to cross the Rainbow Bridge, or, you know, essentially die, so they can taste chocolate before they die, because, you know, every creature deserves to know the wonders of eating chocolate. And obviously dogs can't eat chocolate because then they'll die. But if the animal is going to die anyway, you know, why not give them a cheeky wee treat? And so, speaking of animals, you know, so that these guys, Bean Supreme, who make the organic plain tofu, who look after the SPCA. The SPCA looks after their animals as well. They do an amazing job too. They care about their animals. And so I guess, you know, I've just noticed that this is recyclable. So even though it's plastic, we could turn this into something like a bottle, or, you know, plastic handbag or something like that. Or recycled shopping bags. I see quite a lot of them actually, and often when I go to the supermarket, I take my own bags because plastic bags are really hard to find these days. And so, you know, plastic bags, you know, there's so much of it in the oceans that fish will go along and they will eat the plastic thinking that it's food, like it's a jellyfish or something, but then it gets caught in their gut and then they die. And it's sort of upsetting the food chain, really. If the birds are dying, then so are the sharks and the fish, and the fish that, you know, the birds that eat the fish will die, and the sharks that eat the fish will die because of the plastic. But because this is recyclable, this organic plain tofu, so the packaging is recyclable. And what's really, really exciting to learn is that there's soft plastic recycling in you know, the warehouse stores, some Countdown stores, and I know that some New World stores also do soft plastic recycling. So I guess if you're going to get this organic plain tofu, then consider recycling the plastic. And so when I look at this, it says ready to eat. Ready to eat. And so when I think of a food being ready to eat, I'm not thinking of this tofu. I don't think this tofu is ready to eat. It's cold, it's squishy. Tofu shouldn't be cold or squishy. Tofu should be crispy and soft on the inside, but crispy on the outside when you put it into a stir fry. And I really like stir fry. I'm going to have it for dinner tonight after I finish with this video. So, and it says to consume within 2 days of opening. I don't know if you can see that. Consume within 2 days of opening. it's only me that lives here, and it's just me. And unless I invite a friend over for dinner, I don't think I'm going to be able to get through all this tofu, if I'm honest. Which leads to food wastage, which is, not ideal when I know that there are people who are worse off than me. And so when I think of, people starving or feeling hungry, even like locally with people who perhaps are sleeping rough, or unforeseen circumstances where they can't feed themselves, I could probably make them some tofu with this organic plain tofu from Bean Supreme. And it says supremely better for everyone. Supremely better for everyone. And so as a vegan, a lot of people have this preconceived idea that vegans think they're superior. I'm here to tell you that, yeah, we are. We are definitely supreme, beings compared to other people who eat meat, because we care. We give a shit about animals. And so, Being Supreme, who make this organic plain tofu, support the SPCA. And so as a vegan, I support any sort of outfit that looks after animals. Really, as a human, I'm an animal, and us as animals have needs such as eating and having a roof over our heads. And so I take pride in being a human and taking care of the world around me. And so I guess that concludes this video. So stay tuned for more deconstruction of everyday things, and I'll see you in the next video.